Hey man, I just bought the CPU cooler. I'm super excited about this build.
Oh, it's a cool looking cooler. How much did you pay for it?
Oh, $140 bucks. It was a great deal.
$140 for a air cooler?
What, is $140 not good for an air cooler?
Well, for a budget gaming PC build, that is a lot to spend on an air cooler.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't get the GPU I wanted, but my CPU is gonna be cool.
Yeah, but you definitely could have optimized your build better by not spending that much on an air cooler. And in today's video, we're gonna show you guys how to not overspend on your CPU cooling because there are a lot of better options for you budget gamers after a word from today's sponsor. Hey guys, let's talk for a second. Let's talk about something that is more important than PC gaming. I know, hard to believe, but that's sleep. Having quality sleep is important to living a quality life, and today's video sponsor NOLA is here to provide the best option for you to get that quality sleep right to your door. NOLA is an award-winning mattress brand known for its cooling technology, exceptional pressure relief, and long-lasting durability, along with being conveniently shipped to your door for free. The mattress I'm sitting on right here is the NOLA Evolution 15 that I was able to pick out from NOLA's website. Very easy to shop for the perfect option, and I was able to opt for the luxury firm version that suits my sleeping needs. It is super easy to set up your NOLA mattress. After your purchase, the mattress will be shipped for free to your front door. Place the mattress in the middle of your bed frame and carefully open the plastic for the mattress to unfold into place. Not only do I love sleeping on this mattress, I gave it a try the first night it showed up, but my dog Bear seems to have claimed this bed for his own. I don't really think I'm gonna get this spot in the bed back. With a 120-night sleep trial to ensure you love the mattress, a limited lifetime warranty, and flexible financing options available, it's time to experience better sleep and more energy to power through work and of course those gaming sessions. Head on over to nolamattress.com/toastybros and use code toastybros to get an extra $50 off your mattress plus 2 free pillows with select mattress purchases. Big thanks again to NOLA for sponsoring today's video. Let's get right to it. All right, Jackson, let's talk about this Noctua cooler.
Yeah, so this is the Noctua NH, I'm not even used to saying this, U12A. I say that because we use these brands way more, like IDCooling, Thermalright, you name it. If it's budget, you know the Toasty Bros are all over it. And we normally just kind of turn away from these coolers because this really is $140. And I don't even know if you can get a Noctua cooler under like 70 bucks. They only make air coolers. We think that they're very expensive. We know that they're primo, but we think you pay a lot for them. So we only go with the cheap coolers and tell you guys you get almost the same performance. But have we been wrong all this time?
Yeah, for budget PC builds especially, these coolers just don't make a whole lot of sense because you're going to be spending so much money and maybe getting a lesser GPU or CPU where you get much more performance. When in today's video, we're going to show you guys all of these coolers. And yes, you're seeing a 360 ml liquid cooler that all cost less than this Noctua cooler. And we're going to show you guys for a budget build or even a mid to high end build, you don't necessarily need this cooler. But we'll start with the Noctua one, do a little unboxing, and use this cooler as our baseline testing to see what we have to compete against.
All right, so this is probably the most expensive air cooler that I think I've ever unboxed. But yeah, you know, it's supposed to be pretty premium. It has 7 heat pipes. They basically say that it's a 120 millimeter in physical size, but it cools like a 140 mil. You know, we got our 120 mil fans on here, which right now is set up with a pretty traditional, basically intake here, goes through the cooling fins on the side, and then comes out the back like that, and then out your exhaust. So as you guys can see, we got 7 heat pipes when you count from the middle outwards. Pretty good size aluminum cooler. They do have like some tech specs here on the back, like, you know, maximum fan speed. We got like the weight of the cooler. We got acoustics and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting. We'll definitely pay attention to those kind of things. Now I will say, you know, we're not some of those really high-end tech YouTubers who have all this fancy equipment. We're just gonna be putting these coolers on equipment that makes sense, and then we're gonna give our opinions on it, like the noise that it makes, what type of heat we see, you know, how quickly the fans ramp up and everything. But yeah, overall, pretty nice cooler. I think all these are probably gonna have similar mounting situations where they can mount to pretty much anything, at least what we need in modern day, which is gonna be AM4, AM5, LGA 1200 and up. I noticed this is one thing that's different. I feel like a lot of the coolers we get will have, you know, little slits in there where it's like the aluminum and copper kind of fused together. This one's one solid plate. Will that mean much better cooling performance? Maybe.
And one thing to mention as well with this being a compact cooler that they're trying to advertise as being the performance of a bigger cooler, that's kind of a niche space. So really that's kind of where the premium price tag comes from. Again, all Noctua coolers are expensive, and Noctua has a long brand reputation in the space. So we totally understand why they exist and why their stuff is premium. It's more for you budget gamers out there that you should probably not get this if you're balling on a budget with your budget build, because it's not really going to make a major impact in the end of the day. So
that we think. So
we could be wrong. So what we're going to do is talk about our test bench real quick that we're going to test this cooler on, and then we'll be able to figure out what the temperatures are that we're going up against with all these budget options. Now, while Jackson's getting all the mounting hardware put together for this cooler, let's go over all the key specs of this test bench. We are using a Ryzen 7 7700X because we wanted a CPU that does pull a little bit more power than like a 7600 and can really show you guys, hey, maybe you're in the difference between a 7600 and a 7700 or 7700X, and the difference is you getting a Noctua cooler versus a budget cooler. You can actually get way more CPU performance by saving some money on a budget cooler that you may never heard of and not have to, well, force yourself into a lesser CPU just because you think you need that cooler. And the rest of the stuff doesn't really matter too much for this test station. We are using a 4060 Ti inside this B850 motherboard with an 850 watt power supply and 32 gigs of DDR5 memory. But again, really we're just focused on the CPU here.
All right, so we got MX6.
Six? Oh, okay.
Yep, we got 2 tubes of MX6 just so that we don't accidentally run out of one. So we'll try to keep this consistent. I'm gonna keep it right in the middle, and I'll go from, let's just say, the 2022 up to like the top of the Z. How about that?
Again, there's gonna be a little margin of error, but you know, honestly, I think the factor of these coolers is going to be much bigger than the thermal paste spread being slightly different.
Yeah, which I will say, this one having a smooth bottom, I think will probably have the best spread until we get to like the liquid coolers, which those are usually going to be smooth as well. At this point, we got our Arctic on. Now we're going to bring a monitor over, and we're just going to do some raw testing.
All right, guys, so this is OCCT, which is a stress testing software that we actually use a lot of PC bros or PC selling business to really ensure the stability of the computers we're shipping out to customers. But what we're gonna do with this test is we're going to run a CPU and RAM test for 30 minutes on all these coolers. Now, ideally running for 2+ hours might be more ideal if you are gonna run a full stress test, but we just wanna show you guys as quickly as possible all these different ones at a 30-minute load and see if there is a difference with all of them under full load. This is worst case scenario for this CPU. Most of the time when you're gaming, you're only going to get 40% maybe of your CPU being used, not 100%. So we're going to run this for 30 minutes as our baseline, see what we can get, and then show you guys a quick little gaming test to show you guys the difference. We'll just run around in Cyberpunk for a little bit and see what temperatures we get there, use those numbers, move on to the next one. All right, guys, the baseline OCCT test is done on our 7700X with the Noctua cooler. And what I like about OCCT is you can get these really cool looking reports, which will show on screen here while we're showing the average, minimum, and max temperature. And we'll also talk about the clock speed here, which is going to be pretty important. We're going to focus on the die average, CPU die average, and the numbers we got with the 7700X on the Noctua cooler are as follows. We end up with an average of 71.85 degrees Celsius, a max of 81.92, and a minimum of 36.13. Now, those temperatures are very solid running a 30-minute stress test. And one thing we do want to touch on under system information is this average frequency, because depending on how well the CPU cooler is cooling the CPU, we may be able to boost higher on different CPU coolers or lower with our budget options. And the frequency we got on average was basically 5.2 gigahertz, but here's the exact number on screen here that we can use to compare across all coolers.
So guys, now we're in Cyberpunk. We're doing a much more realistic test because I think a lot of you guys really focus way too much on, you know, like those OCCT scores, and I know a lot of the more advanced YouTubers out there will do a lot of really scientific testing where they're basically really putting the CPUs, or just the coolers in general, under the most maximum load possible, like Xeons, Threadrippers, and, you know, overclocking their CPU. But let's be honest, most time when you're gaming, look, we're using 35% of the 7700X. This isn't even like a 9950X3D. It's literally a 7700X in Cyberpunk. 43%. We're not even really getting quite near the max that we got before because we're not using all of it.
And yeah, the clock speed is even higher compared to under full load. We're sometimes hitting 5.5 gigahertz with these CPUs boosting the way that they are. So this is just another way for you guys to see what the temperatures are going to be. The best way to do the side-by-side will be OCCT, but you can actually see in a game like this, especially when we go with the budget coolers, our PC is not going to explode just because it's getting a little bit warmer.
All right, well, I think we're good to go into the next cooler. I mean, this one's pretty good, but is it $140 good?
Let's go really cheap now. Now we're moving on to a cooler we're very familiar with.
IDCooling SE214XT. So this is a little air RGB tower cooler, just a single fan. So it's nothing crazy, but what's crazy is the price, guys. This cooler comes in at, I believe, $17.99?
Yeah, we priced this one at $17.99, and it only has 4 heat pipes. So we do downgrade on the heat pipes, but we're talking $17 versus $140.
And this is the other thing I was telling you guys about earlier, is check out how we have the heat pipes running through the part that actually holds it down. So to me, this would mean a little less cooling performance just because we have some gaps that thermal paste can slip in, but I don't know, maybe it might not be that much worse. ARGB fan, very cheap fan. I mean, you can probably, I would guess this is like a $2 to $5 fan. So compared to Noctua, what I would think is a much better bang for buck, but who knows, maybe the temp selection would be pretty good. And this one's pretty easy to mount because I've done it so many times.
Obviously, we expect the Noctua to be better. It should be better by a decent amount, but we got to see how close it is. Because the biggest thing is, not only we're not expecting these budget coolers to beat the Noctua cooler, it may not beat it, and some of these might not beat the cooler for whatever reason. It's more or less how close you get for the price you're spending.
You don't have to worry about like the freaking west or east facing, which is nice. It's mounting's on. Now we can go into our thermal paste. So we're gonna go from 2022 once again up to about the Z.
Boop, bobbity boo.
And normally, you know, me personally, I normally do a little more thermal paste in this on this type of cooler because of like the small voids, but we're gonna keep the testing consistent. This one does have like a certain way it faces because the fan offsets so it's not sitting on top of your RAM. Fan one, because we only have one fan, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, we'll run OCCT for 30 minutes and report back and then do some gaming. Okay guys, the results are in. We'll have these on screen right here, but on the left, we have the Noctua versus the IDCooling. And I will say, the average going from 71.85 on the Noctua to only 74.47 on the IDCooling is, well, not a major difference. The max is 83 versus 81, and the minimum is 37 versus 36. The one thing is the clock speed. Technically, we lost a little performance. The average is more 5.1 on the IDCooling versus 5.2, which again, within games is not gonna be a major difference at all. So realistically, this is, I honestly didn't expect it to be this close, but it is very close.
Yeah, no, actually with like the 140 mil cooling performance, I guess that's maybe 3 degrees Celsius different. Not different enough to negate spending an extra $125. But I'm curious to see once we go to like some larger coolers, will we get better performance, or maybe liquid coolers? Will they be better than Noctua?
And just to make sure, we'll run Cyberpunk here to see if there is a major difference at all. But again, this would be a lesser CPU load, so we'll see what that looks like.
All right, we are back in Cyberpunk. I'm gonna hop out of the car so I can like run around like before. We'll need to really compare side by side. I feel like weren't we at like 64, 65 before?
Something like that. It's maybe within a couple degrees. I think we're closer to the 70s on this one, which I don't think the Noctua did hit the 70s. It may have, but again, this isn't the most scientific part of the experiment. Really, the scientific part will be OCCT, and that's not to mention that obviously we have to mention the Noctua cooler with a really higher-end CPU might have a higher thermal headroom versus the IDCooling one, just because it has more potential to cool a higher-end CPU. But we're talking about you budget gamers saving money, and as you can see, you could save a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a great example of like not overspending on certain parts, so you can have more money for the parts that count, like your GPU.
Yeah, I think comfortably under 70 degrees. Obviously, longer game sessions will improve that or worse than that. But I would say with this air cooler, I think it's pretty fine. It'd be fine to run for a gaming experience.
All right, let's go ahead and go on to the next cooler.
Next cooler. Okay guys, so IDCooling surprised us a bit. Actually, not really, we kind of expected it, but I'm curious to see what the Phantom Spirit can do.
Yeah, here's our tech specs in the backs, coming in at $35. So that's a solid $120 cheaper than our Noctua, which is pretty insane to think about it. That's like the difference of going from a 4060 Ti. That's the difference of going from a 4060 Ti to like 4070. Well, if you can still buy them.
Yeah, and then CPU-wise is a big uplift. I mean, you can go from, again, being stuck with like a Ryzen 5 to a Ryzen 7 very easily.
You get a 9800X3D almost. It really is a lot different in the fact that we have two separate cooling towers. The other one was just like a single.
They just like remove this dead space. Like the thickness of it is about this, almost the same when they're put together.
Yeah, it's not,
maybe
save a little bit of room. So I guess if you're worried about exceeding your RAM or something, you might not want a big cooler like this, but I mean, I never think about that really. And these coolers are really good too, because they do this, where you have spots for your RAM to be cut out. But yeah, 7 heat pipes. It definitely looks like, lower quality material. I will say it doesn't weigh quite as much, it seems like, but I have a feeling this one's gonna cool just fine. Up to the Z. Now this one I did notice, it's kind of like the nicer Noctua one, where it's single plate, so we don't have like the weird separation, which didn't seem to really make a difference on temperature. All right, so we're gonna go for this layout. What's cool about these coolers is you have options. You can go reverse blade, you can turn the fans around, you can put them on like the back or the front. I think this is the most ideal.
It's kind of cool.
Cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and load up our OCCT, run it for 30 minutes, and then play some Cyberpunk.
All right, guys, the test is done, and we actually have the first dethroning of the Noctua cooler in this challenge. So the Noctua cooler, once again, had an average of 71.85 degrees Celsius versus 68.92 on the Thermalright cooler. The max on the Noctua cooler was 81.92 degrees Celsius versus 79.39 degrees Celsius on the Thermalright, and the minimum on the Noctua was 36.13 versus a minimum of 34.98 on the Thermalright cooler.
It's crazy because at first I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks hotter, but it's because we only had to go up to 80C on our graph, but this one, because we, I guess we passed like 85C, it had to go up to 100. So even though the Noctua looks like it was cooler, this one actually was cooler across the board, the Thermalright.
And in terms of clock speed, it was slightly
higher.
So it's both 5.2 gigahertz, but it was 5.221.41 megahertz versus 5.203.76 megahertz. So it was an uplift in performance, and the cooler is cheaper. Now, I think this would be a good time to mention that this Noctua cooler, again, the whole point of this video is to show you guys there are better options. This is a very particular type of cooler from Noctua. So if you're looking for a small form factor build, theoretically it may make more sense. But again, we're talking about a cooler here that's not that much bigger, costs way less, and for the average consumer shopping on Amazon and sees this Noctua cooler and they're like, oh wow, this is a really good cooler, I want to buy this one, everyone talks about it, don't do that.
Yeah, well, on top of that, the IDCooling cooler was definitely smaller in every way. It even had one less fan, and we only lost, like, what was it, 2 to 4 degrees Celsius on average, which still, to me, makes it worth going with either of these cheaper coolers.
All right, let's run Cyberpunk.
All right, so it looks like, I think, what were we looking at before? Was it 67 to 70?
Yeah, we hit 70 with the IDCooling cooler at one point. We may or may not do that here, but I think so far, the range has just been 60 to 70 just running around.
Yeah, well, the other thing that you gotta think about too is you're gonna have like spikes where there's times where like the CPU kind of hits a load where it needs to go boost higher, and it doesn't mean that the cooler is always gonna keep up with it right away. So there may be moments, look, we're hitting 59. Yeah. There may be moments where we kind of spike up, and the cooler takes a second to get the fans ramped up and everything, but it seems like this one's overall better.
Yeah, overall a better cooler. I know the kind of word in the industry is people don't really understand how Thermalright's making money on these coolers, because $30 for a cooler like this is kind of insane. But you know what? They exist, and they're making some good options. And they also have an AIO that we'll be switching to here next, and then we'll round things out with a 360 mil from IDCooling. But again, all these liquid coolers that you're going to do are still cheaper than the tower cooler. So we'll see how big of a difference that is.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention too, it's not like, I mean, Thermalright, I think they're like top of the pinnacle for like price to performance, but you do even have other name brands out there. Like, I know we have Thermaltake, we got Cooler Master, you know, they got some good like $40 to $55 coolers. Still, we're talking about a third of the price of the Noctua, and they look really nice, like all black if you want it to be that way, with no RGB or anything. Oh my God, I died that time.
Wow, you actually died. All right.
It's the CPU, it's
just
the CPU
chilling.
that could.
All right, let's swap to a liquid cooler. Well, guys, you may have not thought we could get a liquid cooler, but we did, and this one is $45.
So in terms of like the price moving up, it has gone up. We went from 17/18 to 35, now to 45. But the reason why Matt said what he said is you did not used to be able to get a liquid cooler for like under $100. Even a 120 mil back when we started building was like over $100. These $40 to like $60 liquid coolers exist even in 360 mil form, and they're really freaking good. They have like pretty much no problems ever with leaking. Like in all the years we've been doing this, I think we had one show up one time that had like some liquid on it, so we sent it back. But I mean, we've had these things running for a long time and I've never actually seen one leak.
Yeah, we had to include another Thermalright cooler because they're just killing it in the air in liquid cooled game. But the 360 mil we will showcase afterwards will be, and we'll show some of the tech specs here, will end up being a different brand as well. Because again, we could just go all Thermalright for this entire video, to be honest, but we wanted to mix in some variety.
Mounting these is also, it's pretty easy. It's kind of similar to mounting like your AIOs or your air coolers and whatnot. That might have actually been a little bit less. So this one actually is the first one where we just have like a big exposed copper pad. The other ones are probably copper too, but they were just painted. They could have been aluminum too though, I'm not really sure. I think this is a pretty good spot. We got it kind of like outside the case, but not set up for like the absolute best airflow because as you guys can see, it's kind of against it. So this will be fun to see the difference. The difference.
The difference. All right, guys, we just finished the test with the 240mm Thermalright cooler, and the results are as follows. We ended up getting an average of 67.34 degrees Celsius versus 71.85 on the Noctua cooler, a max of 80.55 on the Thermalright cooler versus 81.92, and a minimum of 33.34 versus 36.13 on the Noctua cooler. So once again, a victory, but some of the data that we got was interesting.
Yeah, across the board, overall slightly better temperatures on the liquid cooler, but I think it's interesting that if you look at some of the spikes on the Noctua cooler, they're a little bit lower than some of the spikes on our liquid cooler, and I think that's just because, you know, the liquid takes a little bit longer to heat up, but also longer to cool down. Not that that really has any effect on anything because we're still well below max temperature. And then also look at the Noctua cooler, how we have, you know, some dips here. We have, like this last one, for example, we got a little bit of a dip here, but then look at the liquid cooler. We have like a massive dip and then another massive dip at the end. So it's interesting to see that the liquid cooler seems like overall, it's slightly better besides just those peak points, and we're talking like 1 degree Celsius.
So yeah, it was still the better cooler versus the Noctua cooler, which continues the theme that we're going on here. So let's just see how much better it can get, I guess, when we go to a 360mm AIO, but first we have to do a little cyberpunk run.
All right, wow, yeah, look at that.
Wow.
50s. Pretty, I know we really haven't talked much about the cooler noise, and I gotta be honest, guys, once again, that's like reaching enthusiast level because all of these coolers are just quiet. Like they're just on the stock fan profile, they're quiet. We could make them even quieter too, because what I normally will do is I'll go into like the BIOS and make it to where the fans are barely on when the CPU's at idle. And once I get into gaming, I'll let them rev up because, guys, you're using headphones most of the time when gaming, so who cares if your PC's a little noisy? But yeah, I mean, it definitely, I feel like we're seeing about 4 degrees on average cooler in gaming.
Yeah, we definitely weren't hovering into the low 50s at any point, so.
And this is like a good example, like one of the cheapest, 240mm coolers on the market. It only gets better. Like when you get to like the name brands like Arctic, which it's crazy to think about. Arctic's like such a good brand. We've been using the thermal paste and everything. They have the Arctic, 360 2 and then like the 242, and those are like 110 to 130 for the RGB versions. They're still cheaper than the Noctua air cooler. And I know those have really good cooling because those even have like the built-in VRM cooling.
Yeah, I guess it's pretty safe to say, I mean, we're getting below 60, which we were not seeing before. And it just shows that, again, we got another cooler here. And we finally have reached the ending where we're going to test the big old 360mm, which, once again, is still cheaper than the Noctua cooler.
I'm curious to see. I got a weird vibe the 360mm isn't going to be cooler because of what CPU we're using. But I don't know. I'm curious to see.
All right, guys, the final cooler.
Aha, 360mm. This is the IDCooling FX360 Pro. This is another one that we use all the time at PC Bros. It's a really awesome, just all black, super sleek cooler. You can add RGB fans, you can keep them nice and black just like that. But 360mm, basically it's the same as our 240, pump and everything's still there, but then you have one extra 120mm worth of radiator plus an extra fan. Quick stats here on the side. I don't think they really give us a whole lot on this one, but $64.99. We're almost halfway to our Noctua cooler. Now this one showed up almost like it had been like kind of open, but we kind of pre-checked it and it looked like it had never been used. So hopefully,
it's more of an Amazon problem than it is an ID cooling problem because we've dealt with that a lot.
So with their cheap air coolers, they do the thing where they have their mounting like separated in like a little tray. But this one's just, they're kind of like the others. And obviously too, we haven't really talked about that much, but thermal paste application and brand can make a difference on your, thermal performance too. Once again, I feel like I think I did a little less on this one too, so doesn't even need it. Okay, so we'll plug in, this is our pump. So once again, we'll put that in the AIO pump header. So we'll just run it to CPU fan 1, let it go just how they give it to us from the factory.
Not much to show here because obviously it is just clean, like nothing going on LED-wise. And it just works.
Let's go ahead and do our OCCT and then our Cyberpunk, see what we get.
Let's go over the 360mm from IDCooling versus the Noctua cooler. The average on the 360mm was 65.91 degrees Celsius versus 71.85 again on the Noctua cooler, a max of 75.03 versus 81.92, and a minimum of 36.63 versus 36.13. Initial reactions.
Well, I was wrong. Apparently, even on a Ryzen 7, 7700X is like, to me, a pretty tame CPU. But even a 360mm in that could actually make sense if it looks good in your build. So it seems like spending the extra you know, $5 to $10 to get the 360 may be worth it, because I mean, these maxes are pretty crazy. We dropped like 5 degrees on the max going from,
that's a 240 mil right
yeah,
there.
this is the 240 mil. We dropped 5 degrees from it. So that's pretty crazy. The average is, you know, and minimum's almost the same, so that's not like that's majorly different. But it still is pretty cool though, that it seems like this cooler having so much more surface area makes it, you know, heat up slower and cool down quicker, it seems like.
All right, guys, it is time with the 360 mil in the car. Yeah, it's looking about the same. This might be one of those, again, with the liquid cooler, you're not going to see it initially. Potentially, we might stay lower into like the upper 50s more consistently than the 240 mil, just having more surface area. Again, this is within margin of error to where, like, if you're gaming 24/7, I mean, you know, it's not gonna make a major difference. I don't think we saw 56 before, though. That's a little lower.
Yeah, no, I mean,
55?
I definitely think we're like slightly lower. And I really think this is where it comes down to me to like the just preference and like looks. Like, I'm always gonna, if the top of my PC fits a 360, I mean, go 360, don't go 240, you know, fill the top up.
Well, basically, what you're learning from this video is if you're a budget gamer, and really most gamers, unless you have a very particular use case, and again, we argue on the other side of things, some stuff that you guys think makes no sense whatsoever, that there is a use case for certain things on the market. 99% of you don't need to buy a Noctua cooler because you don't really have the proper use case for it, and or it just doesn't make a lot of sense value.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I will say Noctua has like some cool, like their low profile coolers are kind of cool, but like, I still just feel like, I don't think they're really bragging about that one being like super I mean, I know they kind of say it's compact. I think they're more bragging saying, oh, this performs like it's a 140 mil cooler, probably from them. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know if I care that much, honestly, because I just look at, I'm sure a 140 probably costs even more. I don't want to pay these prices, but yeah, the temps are looking good. I mean, they're looking pretty close to like the 240 mil.
All right, guys, well, we finished all our testing. Let's form a final conclusion, and hopefully you guys learned something interesting from this experiment, and let's wrap this video up real quick.
Woo! All right, guys, that was a lot of testing. We got through multiple coolers, starting from the Noctua and then going basically from the lowest price all the way to the most expensive, which, like we said, it was less than half the price of one of the Noctua coolers that we used in this testing. And I mean, the results are pretty clear that no matter what, price to performance, you're just not really getting it with Noctua.
Yeah, the biggest thing is, obviously, this is a very particular Noctua cooler. I know they have some more basic ones, which we are going to list off some of them here. This one is designed to be the more compact version of a 140 mil, so maybe it's meant for certain case configurations. And either way is incredibly expensive, and this is a public PSA for new PC gamers who are like, hey, I heard Noctua is good, I have to spend this much money. No, you got this option, this option, this option, and this option, with most of them even outperforming this option for way less money. And let's talk about the other coolers that you could get from them that are honestly some cheaper, some more expensive, but are not really as good of an option either.
To get an actual 140 from them, the cheapest they have is about 140 bucks. It's once again all black. It is the NH-D15. In theory, yeah, that would perform a little bit better than this one. It'd probably be on par with this Phantom Spirit. It's one of the dual tower ones, but this one was 35 bucks comparatively. If you want to go really cheap, they do have 92 millimeter coolers that are $70, which, to give you an idea, these guys here make one called the A400 that is also a 90 or 92 millimeter tower cooler, and I think it's like 20 bucks, sometimes even cheaper than that. And that one's called the NH-U9S. And then my last choice here, because there is other coolers, but this is the last one worth noting, the NH-U12S, which is a 120 mil single tower. So that's the equivalent to this that we paid $17.99 for, all black. It looks like it even has some exposed aluminum, so it's really not even all black, and it's $100 on Amazon. So it just goes to show that, like we said, Noctua, we know they're legendary. We know that they use really high quality components and parts. Maybe they're even handmade, I don't know. But the big moral of the story is if you're just looking for price or performance, you don't care about anything name brand, you don't care about it being handmade or not, any of these other coolers, and honestly a lot of the other coolers in the market, are going to be better for the price.
So if you guys want to buy any of the coolers from today's video, links in the description down below will be affiliate links. They will help us out. Let us know if you enjoyed this style of video, and if you guys want to see more testing on stop over wasting concepts in the PC space, let us know in the comments down below.
But as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/ToastyBros, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
Now, some of these coolers here will probably end up at PCBros.tech. Of course, you know, we try to find you guys the best bang for buck, so we're not typically loading our builds with brands and parts that just add extra cost for no reason. We try to look out for you guys.
And if you guys don't feel like looking for a cooler yourself for your custom gaming PC, you just want to have one ready to go for you, go to PC Bros and just buy a gaming PC. Don't get brain rot like me testing a bunch of coolers. See you guys later. Goodbye.